At this moment, the world has entered the Ice Age. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 626. The report headquarters is huge, and the icebergs are approaching the Yellow Sea coastline. Stop it. Even if you can't stop him, you must slow down as much as possible to avoid causing more damage to the coastline. Clear. For a while, a large number of icebreakers rushed out of the port like black sharp arrows. This action was also broadcast live on the official website of the Yellow Sea. The iceberg continent is approaching the coastline. Major citizens should be careful not to approach the coast during the 793 campaigns. Since the news was released, the relevant departments of Xihai City began to quickly arrange the evacuation of residents near the coastline point. The icebreaker fleet on the other side also arrived at the sea area, where the iceberg continent is located. Thanks to this huge iceberg, the continent is blessed with choppy seas. If ordinary small fishing boats strayed into this place, they would most likely be overturned by this huge wave and swallowed into the seabed. But the most terrifying thing is still not these turbulent waves, but the iceberg continent not far away, hazy in a white mist. The cold air emanating from the iceberg continent has caused a large amount of dense white mist to form all over its body. This makes the icebreaker unable to get closer to it, and once it gets close to it, it is likely to lose its way in the white mist point. The worst possibility is to hit the iceberg continent that is on the move, causing the ship to destroy and kill. In the endless sea, this dangerous white mist enveloped most of the sea. Captain, this time the iceberg continent is bigger than what we have encountered before. Shall we continue? Continue. Why not continue? There is always someone who has to do dangerous things. It's just a mere iceberg. What's to be afraid of? When Laozi was fighting the cold wave, it didn't know where it was growing. Don't be impulsive. This is our main task. That is, to explore the specific data of this iceberg continent. All to obtain data. Do not force it. Receive. The figure of the icebreaker was immersed in the white mist, and everyone could not help but raise their hearts when they saw these icebreakers were immersed in the white mist point. You must know that the temperature of these white mists has reached below zero. Once these icebreakers enter the white mist, life and death are unknown. At this moment, a voice came from the exclusive channel. Report to the headquarters. This is the icebreaker number 3. We have successfully installed the measuring equipment and are preparing to return to the voyage. Allowed to return. Report to headquarters. This is icebreaker 4. Report to headquarters. This is icebreaker 7. One after another icebreakers reporting ship to the headquarters dedicated channel. Everyone's heart gradually eased with the continuous installation of measuring instruments. This iceberg continent shrouded in white mist is gradually showing up in front of everyone. Shock. The total area of this iceberg continent has reached 500,000 square meters. This can be regarded as a small continent. If such a large path of iceberg hits the edge of the Yellow Sea, then the loss caused afterwards is not only 5.5 Yellow Sea City, it is very likely to cause large-scale tsunamis and earthquakes in the surrounding areas. We can't wait any longer. Let's use our previous method to see if we can break it, and if it doesn't help, we can also try to reduce his speed. Prepare a geothermal bomb and let this guy taste his suffering. We are not the place where he wants to come in the east. Chapter 627. At this time, Ying Ziyue was also watching the live broadcast of the Yellow Sea City. After the Yellow Sea announced the area of the iceberg continent, even Ying Ziyue was a little surprised. Never imagined that these icebergs could form such a huge continental plate when gathered together. It's just that all of these iceberg continents are made of ice, and there is no way to survive. Otherwise, you can consider using glaciers for artificial continents. Mr. Ying, why didn't Xihai apply for long-range missile support from Mount Everest 02 Langma base? If you use the long-range assistance of the Mount Everest missile base, this iceberg continent should not be a problem. Indeed, if the Everest base were to be used as a long-range missile column, their firepower would be enough to blast this iceberg continent into fragments. However, you must know that this iceberg continent is constantly moving. If the Mount Everest base chooses long-range missile support, it must be prejudged after a lot of time measurement before it can aim at the target point. Moreover, this method can only solve the urgent need. According to reports, there are not a few iceberg continents in the world. If they rely on the firepower of Mount Everest and remote support, then the East will consume a lot of resources to clear these iceberg continents every year. Generally speaking, the East consumes astronomical resources every year, which is not worth the gain. This is the first iceberg continent to endanger human safety, but it will definitely not be the last. What we seek is to use the least resources to solve the biggest disaster. No matter how rich the military reserves of the Everest base are, it will be used up sooner or later. We can't just rely on that one method. Speaking of this, in the live broadcast, Xihai City has started the blasting plan of the iceberg continent. The plan is to let people go to the iceberg continent on an icebreaker, and then plant bombs at some of the iceberg continent's connections. In this way, all these connected glaciers can be separated by the impact of the bomb. The icebergs that gather together to form the continent may be a bit dangerous to humans, but if they are separated, they can be broken one by one. The operation began. Fortunately, those icebreakers had installed detection instruments on the iceberg continent before. The operatives quickly found the iceberg continent and climbed it. At this moment, an accident happened, because the operatives discovered that there is no so-called connection on these iceberg continents. These glaciers are integrated, and there is no way to start. How is it possible? The iceberg continents we encountered before have very obvious connections. If this is the case, then there is only one possibility. That is, these 800 iceberg continents have been formed for a long time, and the connections among them have long been integrated into one another. It is difficult. The operatives standing on the iceberg continent have no way to start. In desperation, the personnel at the headquarters can only ask him to put the geothermal bomb on the iceberg continent first point after the bomb was installed. The operatives quickly evacuated. With a loud noise, the white mist was blown away by the shock wave of the bomb point. The true face of the iceberg continent was displayed in front of everyone, and flowers of flame bloomed on it, forming an extremely magical scenery point on the iceberg. There are a lot of flame flowers growing. Chapter 628. This magical scene was deeply reflected in the minds of all the audience. The huge iceberg continent image and the blossoming flame flowers are fighting for freshness and beauty. The audience in the live broadcast room couldn't help but exulted when they saw this scene. But at the Yellow Sea headquarters, everyone's expressions were solemn. After the iceberg blasting operation they just arranged, after a dozen geothermal bombs, the huge iceberg in front of them still has no loss at all, except for its height downward and a short section short. There was no scene of fragmentation as they expected. However, it is worth mentioning that its speed has been weakened by a few points after the explosion just now. Even so, hitting the Yellow Sea City at its current speed will surely lead to the annihilation of the entire Yellow Sea City. The Xihai City headquarters sighed helplessly and then said, since none of these methods are of any use to it, we can only use our last trump card. At this time, the Xihai soldier had been soaked in the seawater for half an hour. After checking his whole body, he found that there was no problem at all. The first test of Xihai soldier ended in a hurry. They tried any method, and they still couldn't stop the advancement of the glacier continent. Now, the headquarters of Xihai City can only pin its hopes on the sea soldiers in this town. The scene of the live broadcast room turned to Xihai soldier. When the audience in the live broadcast room saw Xihai soldier, the heat in the live broadcast room was instantly ignited like a bomb. My dear, I said why I didn't see the giant soldier just now. It turned out to be here. Just through the live broadcast, we saw that the iceberg is huge. Can Xihai soldier solve it? What nonsense are you talking about? This is Xihai soldier. It's a giant soldier. It's Gundam. It should have been a long time ago for the giant soldiers to play. Hurry up and move to smash that iceberg continent. Before, the test of the basalt soldiers made everyone see the power of the giant soldiers. These giant soldiers are like the steel god of war, lightly moving everyone's heart. This is the command center. Warning, Xihai soldiers will be dispatched soon. Received. Start testing. The giant god soldier has 100% energy reserves, and energy testing is complete. The armor loss of the giant god soldier is 0, and the armor detection is complete. The transport unit is ready. Ready to transport the giant soldiers. Ready. Xihai soldier, attack. With a snort, Xihai soldier released a large amount of steam from all over his body, and the geothermal heart in his chest began to rotate, point buzzing. The machinery and gears bit each other. Xihai soldiers moved, only to see him slowly lift his right foot. Suddenly, the surrounding seas began to be surging, and the Xihai soldiers took a step forward, and for a while, they set off stormy waves like a boulder falling into the lake. Xihai soldiers moved, and he began to advance in the port. 1 step, 2 steps and 3 steps. It was like a sea god, moving arbitrarily in the sea. Boom boom boom. A muffled sound of money followed the footsteps of Xihai soldier into everyone's ears. My god, is this a giant soldier? It's so handsome too. I had known that I would work harder. Maybe I can get a high score to be a candidate for the driver of the Titan soldier. Mecha is a man's romance. If I could drive a giant soldier once in my life, I would be worth death. At this time, the iceberg continent has come to the offshore, and it is about to confront the giant soldiers. Chapter 629. Report to the headquarters. The iceberg continent has arrived offshore, and it is estimated that there will be 10 minutes to reach the coastline of the Yellow Sea. We have sent giant soldiers to intercept. If the giant soldiers can't stop this huge iceberg, then we can only abandon this city. Don't worry, sir. We are the secret weapon for Xihai soldiers this time. We will win this battle. It was Nan Wenshi who said this sentence, the chief engineer of Xihai. No one knows the giant soldier born in his own hands better than him. Hearing Nan Wenshi's confident words, the commander of the headquarters also breathed a sigh of relief. 800. Since he is so confident as the chief engineer of the giant god soldier, there is no need to worry too much. At this time Xihai soldier was standing in the ocean, and the waves began to become turbulent. The waves that were only a few meters in height have now risen to tens of meters, as if to welcome the arrival of the iceberg continent. Even the sky became extremely gloomy. The sea was roaring, the sky fell, and finally a cloud of white mist appeared in everyone's field of vision. Here comes. This iceberg continent, which has survived a large number of geothermal bombs, is still safe and sound, and now it has finally reached the coastline of Xihai City. At this time, even the hearts of the audience in the live broadcast room were raised. Which one is better than the giant soldier or the huge iceberg? At this moment, Xihai's soldiers moved. In the eyes of everyone, his right arm stretched out a chainsaw, and the surface of the chainsaw was sparkling. This scene directly exploded the audience in the live broadcast room. My goodness, did they even equip giant soldiers with weapons? This is too handsome. As a hookup lover, I died on the spot. Does the Titan soldier use this chainsaw to directly split the huge iceberg continent? I just want to ask one sentence now. Can the official website give me another opportunity to test my qualifications to drive a giant soldier? The chainsaw of Xihai's right arm uses electric particle technology. The sharpness of this particle chainsaw is hundreds of times stronger than that of ordinary chainsaws. This particle data is also the same. Now when she said that the giant soldiers must be able to stop the iceberg continent, Xihai soldiers moved, and after the parties saw its true speed, they realized that they had previously underestimated it far. I saw Xihai soldiers stepping on the seawater, and the whole body set off a stormy sea, rushing to the iceberg continent like an arrow from the string. With a clatter, tens of meters of turbulent waves were as vulnerable as a baby in front of him. With one blow, he smashed the waves away, raising the particle chainsaw in his hand, and rushing towards the iceberg continent, buzzing, accompanied by a near-piercing sound. The Xihai soldier holding a particle chainsaw, like a sharp blade, cut into the hinterland of the iceberg continent madly. The huge iceberg continent is as vulnerable as tofu in front of the giant soldiers. The giant god soldier dashed frantically, and suddenly there was something in front of him. Behind him, the iceberg continent was divided into 2. Everyone was shocked. Xihai showed his unparalleled power for the first time. A chainsaw directly split the iceberg continent into 2. This feat is comparable to a god. Before it was over, Xihai soldier saw the geothermal heart on his chest turning frantically. At this moment, He raised the particle chainsaw in his hand again and cut the iceberg continent again. Chapter 630. My god, he actually slashed the iceberg continent. I thought that this kind of thing only exists in myths. I never thought it would happen before my eyes. This moment must be recorded in the annals of history. Who believes that, if you say this, the performance of Xihai far exceeded everyone's expectations? It was never expected that the giant soldier developed by the East could be so powerful. After Ying Ziyue saw the performance of the giant soldiers through the live broadcast, he smiled slightly and saw the outstanding performance of the giant soldiers in front of him. He knew that his efforts were not in vain, nor was the efforts of the Eastern powers in vain. The Xihai soldier on the other side held a particle chainsaw and cut all the remaining iceberg continents in less than a few minutes. The originally huge iceberg continent has now changed into several small glaciers. Xihai soldiers quickly came to these glaciers and bombarded them with a punch. These glaciers immediately turned around and started to leave the coastline quickly. If these glaciers are allowed to float to the shore, although it will not have any huge impact on the city, it will be very troublesome to clean up. So Xihai soldiers punched down and forcibly changed the direction of these glaciers just when everyone in the live broadcast room thought that this disaster was over. Xihai soldiers' left arm actually began to deform, and in a blink of an eye, it turned into the shape of an electromagnetic cannon. My god, how many weapons does this town seaman have? No, I finally calmed down and unexpectedly gave me such a surprise again. I died in place again. Is this shape an electromagnetic cannon? Is Xihai soldier preparing to solve the problem of the glacier here? Yes, if these glaciers are allowed to continue to leave, it will not only cause trouble to some ships in the offshore point. Moreover, if these glaciers are not eradicated, they are likely to be driven by ocean currents and reform huge glacier continents. I saw Xihai soldiers' left arm shooting in all directions with a muffled sound, and an electromagnetic ball was launched and landed on a glacier with a loud noise. The glacier turned into dust and disappeared into the vast sea. Afterwards, a large number of electromagnetic balls fell on top of the icebergs, and within a few breaths, the entire sea area returned to its former calm. Zero fine flowers. Xihai soldiers stood motionless in the sea water, and then 20 transport planes landed from the sky, and a large number of ropes tied up Xihai soldiers. After the disaster relief was over, Xihai soldiers recovered, and the live broadcast ended. But everyone was still immersed in the disaster relief process just now. Xihai soldier's appearance like a sea god was deeply imprinted in everyone's mind. 0 at this time, Xihai soldier returned to Xihai City, and then a large number of engineers rushed forward and began to conduct maintenance tests on Xihai soldier. After a series of tests, the test results surprised many engineers except for energy consumption, which is nearly half. The other consumption is almost zero. In other words, Xihai soldiers can be put into use without any problems. Nan when she smiled from ear to ear, I said, Xihai soldier must have no problem. The data report on Xihai soldier quickly reached Ying Ziyue's hands. Ying Ziyue nodded and then said, next, Xihai soldier's drawings can be used to build other giant soldiers. Chapter 631. The great success of Xihai has caused a series of chain reactions. Now on the internet, you can see the discussion of giant soldiers everywhere on the internet. This also made Ying Ziyue embark on the construction plan of other giant soldiers in the Xuanwu city near Yanjing Point. When the engineers saw the performance of Xihai soldiers, they couldn't help but look at the basalt soldiers next to them, and they didn't know when the mysterious 83 soldiers they made could play a huge role. Ying Ziyue began to select seaside cities suitable for the construction of giant soldiers. You must know that the construction of giant soldiers cannot be undertaken by just a city. The reason why Xihai City was chosen as the execution city of the giant god soldiers plan was precisely because Xihai City had experience in manufacturing such a behemoth as a deep sea battleship. Ying Ziyue feels that making Xihai City, a city that has the ability to manufacture giants, will have a multiplier effect with half the effort. Now it seems that there was nothing wrong with his original decision, and Xihai City has already given him a satisfactory answer. So far, Xihai City is also a city that is very suitable for the implementation of the giant god soldier manufacturing plan. At this moment, the secretary walked into the office and said solemnly, "It's not good, Leader Ying. A huge crack suddenly appeared in the inland area just now." Upon hearing these words, Ying Ziyue stood up for the first time and asked quickly, "What damage did this crack cause? Tell me in detail how long, deep and wide it is." This crack suddenly appeared in a mine near Southeast City. Nearly 1,000 miners in the mine fell into this crack without knowing their lives. This crack is 3 kilometers long and 500 meters wide. The depth measured so far is unknown, leaving to carry out rescue work. The rescue work ranks first, the exploration mission ranks second, and the priority is to rescue the workers. The news quickly reached the ears of Xihai City, and immediately, the personnel of Xihai City took the initiative to ask for help, saying that the surviving personnel would be rescued. Point about this huge crack, it quickly spread throughout the east. It's really a wave of just flattening and another wave. In this era, it's really a disaster. There will be a wave of 0 in 2 days. Don't worry, there must be no problem with having giant soldiers in the east. Can a huge body like a giant soldier really be able to take on a rescue mission? Some people have issued such doubts. At this time, the huge crack area has been surrounded by a large number of reporters, and they are reporting on the huge crack. Among them was a familiar face, that was Xihai. Xihai was standing in the crowd, the camera aimed at the huge unfathomable crack in front of him. "Hello friends, everyone, I'm now beside a mysterious crack in a mine near Southeast City. The scene has now been completely banged by official personnel. We can only watch it in the outer area, but we can also see this crack. It is really huge and unfathomable. Those workers who fall into it are probably not lucky." At this moment, the roar of a helicopter caught everyone's attention. When they looked up, they saw a large number of transport planes dangling basalt soldiers gradually approaching here. "Look, everyone, it's a giant soldier." Chapter 632. It's a giant soldier. The official actually sent a giant soldier over, as expected of an official action. So fast, with the giant soldiers on the stage, isn't the rescue operation done? The official website also uses drones for tracking live broadcasts at this time. The drone is hovering in the sky and the camera looks down. I saw a huge mysterious crack, like a wound on the earth, appearing on this ice sheet. At first glance, the black hole looked at everyone like an abyss with a bang. The basalt soldiers landed, but this time there was no huge movement like the last time on 02, and the reporters on the side only felt a slight shock. To know that the last time the basalt soldiers landed, they directly smashed the ground into a deep pit. The scene was simply shocking. In fact, it wasn't that the basalt soldiers had lost their previous mighty aura, but because the equipment carried by the basalt soldiers was different between the two. The armor on the body last time was mainly for protection and destruction, so it was relatively heavy, but this rescue operation was mainly about rescue. In this huge crack, climbing back and forth requires extremely powerful climbing ability of basalt soldiers. Reducing some unnecessary weight on the body can greatly improve its climbing ability and rescue the trapped workers faster. The giant soldier is not only a weapon, it can be used in many fields, and it is considered at the beginning of the design that various situations will be encountered afterwards, so these giant soldiers can change into other states that can resist disasters at any time. For example, the current basalt soldier. His shoulders were originally 2 pieces of extremely heavy armor, and now they have become 2 huge climbing claws, and his waist is also covered with climbing hooks that can be launched at any time. The hands of the basalt soldier are also equipped with barbs, which can be ejected during his rock climbing process, and firmly attached to the rock wall. This is the giant soldier. I saw the basalt soldier slowly approaching. The reporter on the side was a little excited, and even wanted to break through the protective line to take a close shot of the basalt soldier. The safety maintenance staff quickly stopped the excited reporters and then said, "Go back. Back all. Until the safety of this huge crack is clear, everyone should not come forward and get in close contact." At this time, the official website released the live images in time. When the reporters saw it, they also faded out the live images broadcast by the official website. Approaching the mysterious crack will not only be obstructed, but may also be life-threatening. How can it be fragrant to broadcast an official live broadcast For a while, a large number of viewers poured into the live broadcast room, even more popular than the last live broadcast of Xihai Soldier. After Xihai Bing's last live broadcast debut of the Stunning Four, even some people who were not interested in the giants came in to watch. Is this the giant soldier? With such a huge body, how is he going to rescue the surviving workers? I believe that the country can send giant soldiers. There must be a reason for its use. Stop talking. Look carefully. The giant soldier is about to act. Seeing the basalt soldiers walked to the huge crack. After comparing the two with each other, the huge crack did not appear to be that huge. Suddenly the basalt soldier squatted down. The whole body exuded a lot of steam, and with a puff, accompanied by a large amount of steam gushing out of the basalt soldier into the air, everyone was horrified. Are the Xuanwu soldiers preparing to jump directly into the crack? Chapter 633. Just as everyone was horrified, the climbing claws on the shoulders of the basalt soldiers spurted out, and two huge heads of the garden directly hooked on both sides of the huge crack. Then something amazing happened. The two seemingly weak steel cables actually supported the entire body of the basalt soldier. My god, what kind of material is this? It can actually support such a huge giant soldier. Am I watching magic? These two climbing claws actually held the giant soldier. I'm a good boy. I thought the giant soldier would fall directly, but I didn't expect it to be held up by two ropes. Ying Ziyue smiled slightly at the barrage in the live broadcast room. It seemed that these people hadn't realized it yet. Today, with the blessing of fine gold mines and geothermal energy, the technology of the East has achieved rapid progress. The two iron cords are made of purple gold alloy, let alone a giant soldier. Even if it is two giant soldiers, there is no way to break it. On the other side, basalt soldiers hang in the center of the huge crack, and beneath him is an endless dark abyss. The Xuanwu soldier turned on the laser measuring instrument, and began to measure the crack under his body. It didn't take long for the measurement result to come out. The depth of the crack was 100,000 meters. This depth is beyond the range that mankind can predict. I don't know whether there is an unknown existence for mankind in the depths of this crack point. Before he could think about it, the basalt soldiers let go. One of the climbing claws let his body cling to a rock wall. After that, the basalt soldier put away another rock climbing claw, and finally the whole body dropped rapidly. In a blink of an eye, the huge body of the Xuanwu soldier disappeared into the darkness, and only the strong light on the Xuanwu soldier could be seen, still in the darkness, faintly flashing. While descending, the basalt soldiers uploaded the data around the cracks to the headquarters, and they had the terrain information uploaded by the basalt soldiers to the headquarters. The headquarters quickly restored the mysterious crack in a 3-dimensional map. Now immediately send a detection spider troop and follow the basalt soldiers to go deep underground. The scouting spider unit is a special UAV unit developed by the East inspired by the wasp detector. This kind of scout spider unit is not only small in size, but also can go deep into places that are difficult for humans to reach. This is dangerous, and it will not feel distressed if it suffers losses. The reporter, who was still near the mysterious crack, saw a blizzard chariot appearing near the mysterious crack. When he was puzzled, he saw soldiers wearing black tactical uniforms and dark green goggles stepping off the blizzard chariot. Then, there was a picture that made them creepy. The soldiers opened the trunk of the blizzard tank, and there were fist-sized spiders inside. Seeing those things, and pressing a button, these spiders suddenly lit their skull eyes, and then densely crawled out of the reserve good money box, deep into the mysterious crack. Suddenly, all the reporters on the scene appeared again by this mystery, and the troops were attracted over. And they all wanted to go over and inquire, but the soldiers went directly into the blizzard chariot without saying anything. And then some security personnel surrounded the blizzard chariot. Sorry, it's their working hours. Please cooperate with us, and don't disturb them. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 634. With the perspective of the basalt soldiers, all everyone saw was darkness. I don't know how long it took. The Xuanwu soldier looked down and saw light appeared not far from under his feet. This light is particularly dazzling in such a dark environment. The pilot of the Zhuanwu soldier also had a little joy in his heart, and he was finally able to leave the darkness. Afterwards, everyone went to that bright area. The basalt soldiers descended rapidly, and when they reached that bright area, everyone was shocked by the scenery in front of them, because they actually saw the plant. It was still a lush tree. Through this crack, they could see a dense jungle. If it weren't for the statistics that it was 100,000 meters underground, they might even think they were back on the surface. The world is shocked. Everyone is shocked. There is actually an independent ecological environment underground. The basalt soldier jumped directly, and with a thud, he landed on the ground. The loud sound even stunned the birds in the jungle. My god, I didn't expect that there would be an independent ecological environment in 100,000 meters underground. Without sunlight, how did they survive here? Soon, as the basalt soldiers looked towards the center, they finally understood that there was an artificial sun hanging above the sky. It's just that this artificial sun is obvious. It's a long time ago, and the black spots on it are so dense that it won't last long. Suddenly, from the jungle, a Tyrannosaurus Rex rushed out, but when he saw this behemoth several hundred meters, he instantly went down. At this time, the headquarters directly exploded, and the discovery of the underground world shocked them. Send a transport helicopter immediately. Protect this underground world. At all costs, immediately evacuate the mysterious crack. Unrelated personnel nearby. A series of orders were circulated from the headquarters, and all departments strictly implemented them. It didn't take long for the mysterious cracks to be surrounded by official personnel, and the reporters had already been expelled. The discovery of the underground world allowed them to see the traces of ancient civilizations, especially this artificial sun. If it has been in operation since the Cambrian period, the technology contained in it is far higher than their current artificial solar technology. Subsequently, a large number of transport aircraft hovered over the mysterious crack. Report to the headquarters. This is Transport 1. Request to send the cracks and the surrounding terrain map. Here is the map of the headquarters. All the information has been transmitted. Please pay attention to receiving it. Receive. In the next second, a large number of transport aircraft began to enter the mysterious crack point in the underground world. After the basalt soldiers subdued the Tyrannosaurus, they also found the trapped workers and began rescue operations. The discovery of the underground world is immense. Ying Ziyue looked at the rich ancient creatures in the underground world, and the corners of her mouth rose slightly pointy. Decided that he wanted to build a paradise of paleontology, and these paleontological creatures shouldn't be annihilated in the long river of history. He used modern human technology to reproduce the ancient ecosystem at that time, and then Ying Ziyue issued an order for those creatures in the underground world. Only allow them to be captured alive, and not allowed to harm them. This is an important biological gene bank. Chapter 635. The discovery of the underground world made Ying Ziyue extremely excited. She never thought that these ancient creatures would still survive in the underground to this day. The great success of the basalt soldiers has made people all over the world look forward to the giant soldiers even more. Some people even restored the official game released at that time, studied hard, and then uploaded their scores to the country's official mailbox. After receiving these emails, Ying Ziyue recorded all the potential characters. Now there are far more giant soldiers than the plots created. Before the demand is saturated, he does not plan to recruit other giant soldiers. At this moment, the secretary walked into his office and said to him, "Leader Ying, Director Jinwen of the Astronomical Bureau wants to report something to you." "What's the matter?" Ying Ziyue understands that these so-called Central Bureau, Engineering Bureau, and Astronomical Bureau, if there is nothing important, they will never contact them. Director Jinwen said that based on recent astronomical observations, the moon is getting closer and closer to our Earth. It is expected that in a month, the distance between the moon and the Earth may reach the closest distance in history. He called it, "It's the phenomenon of the sky and the moon." After hearing these words, Ying Ziyue furrowed her brows, and it was a wave of unrest again. If it is true as the director of the Astronomical Bureau said, 1 month later, there will be a Xihai phenomenon, then this celestial and moon phenomenon will definitely cause huge tidal changes and even a huge tsunami. I'll go to the Astronomical Bureau. It is impossible to measure just how close the moon is to the earth this time with a verbal description. He needs to go to the astronomical station, take more specific data, and then predict the magnitude of the huge tsunami caused by the next tidal phenomenon. Based on these data, riding a UFO, Ying Ziyue came to the Astronomical Bureau. Today's Astronomical Bureau has an extremely important position. Their daily work is to observe the Earth's position in dense galaxies, always observe all the stars around the Earth that may pose a threat to the Earth, and report to the headquarters at any time. Ying Ziyue came to the Astronomical Bureau. Director Jin Wen hurriedly came out to greet him. Apart from anything else, Ying Ziyue said directly, I want all the data about Yang's trajectory now. I hope you can make accurate predictions in a short time. Its trajectory, when is it closest to the Earth, and how big the tide will be, these must be reported to the headquarters quickly. 0. Find flowers if the moon is allowed to continue to approach the Earth. The tides and tsunamis will be enough to engulf all the surrounding seaside cities. 0. This loss is enough to cause severe damage to human civilization. Ying Ziyue has to take it seriously, soon. Chief Jin Wen handed over the data they observed to Ying Ziyue. It was predicted that on the 31st night, the moon would occupy half of the sky at that time point. At that time, a huge tsunami was caused, and the highest wave height is predicted to reach hundreds of meters. The most terrifying thing is not these, but these waves will continue to impact the coastal cities until the moon completely returns to the right track and leaves the vicinity of the Earth. As for the protection strength of the city walls in the seaside city, although it can withstand the attack of the waves, it cannot resist for a long time. Death. Chapter 636. After hearing these data, Ying Ziyue frowned. The news must be notified to the coastal cities as soon as possible. After notifying these coastal cities, Ying Ziyue came to her office in Yanjing, and after rummaging through the cabinets, she finally found a plan. This plan was specially set up after he returned from Xihai City, but he didn't expect it to finally come in handy. The 8 and 7 wall plan of life. This plan was an idea that came up after he saw the wall of life developed by Zhao Wenlin in Xihai City. Now it's time for this plan to be used. It's time for him to build a huge wall of life around the entire coastline to deal with the next tsunami. This is a crazy plan. It's not just a matter of knowing to surround the entire coastline. Under the construction of a huge life surrounding the entire coastline within a profession, this plan just sounds like a fantasy. But don't forget that this is the East, a big country in the East known as the infrastructural madness. Just do it. And immediately, Ying Ziyue took the plan to the Central Engineering Department, went directly to the Drawing and Inspection Department, and handed her plan to some draftsmen. When the draftsmen saw the plan in his hand, they couldn't help taking a breath. This is really a big deal. Is it a bit hasty to build a huge wall of life around the entire coastline and complete it in 1 month? The amount of this project is no less than that of the previous Fengxu chain city. Ying Ziyue on the side smiled and said, what were the conditions when the wind and snow chain city was built before? What are the conditions now? The two are fundamentally different. You only need to be able to draw specific engineering drawings for this wall of life. You must know that we are a big eastern country here. How can it be difficult to get us with this degree of engineering difficulty? The draftsman smiled. Don't worry, leave it to us to guarantee you a satisfactory answer to the drawings within 1 day. It's also here, but the East is known as the big eastern country of infrastructure madness. What else is impossible for them to accomplish? Immediately, the project of the Wall of Life began to be put on the schedule, and the draftsman worked day and night to draw the drawings of the Wall of Life. For a while, the plan on the strength of life spread throughout the engineering department, and everyone was shocked by such a large-scale plan. Have you heard? Recently, our country will start a plan to build the Wall of Life. I heard that it is really a huge project, not inferior to the original Wind and Snow Chain City. I heard that the Wall of Life project this time is to defend against the huge tsunami that is about to hit zero. I don't know how huge this tsunami really is. Such a huge project has to be built to withstand this tsunami. Why do you want to do so much? At that time, we just need to do it, making a fuss. Are you still involved in huge projects? It is also said that, since the Ice Age, they have also participated in various large and small projects. Now that even the space elevator is in the process of construction, what magical project they still haven't seen? At this time, Ying Ziyue took a UFO to Xihai City. This time the Wall of Life project. Xihai City is the core part of the plan. Chapter 637. Xihai City Research Center. Zhao Wenlin heard that Ying Ziyue was coming to Xihai City and waited at the airport early. This is completely different from the scene when Ying Ziyue came to Xihai City for the first time. Now Zhao Wenlin of Xihai City has developed a Vulcan energy extractor, therefore, Zhao Wenlin also has the title of Father of Vulcan in the mouth of others. After all, the Vulcan energy extraction machine he developed extracts a large number of geothermal particles, so Dongfang successfully entered the era of geothermal power from the era of nuclear power. Leader Ying, I heard that you are here this time for the study of the Wall of Life. Yes, I'm going to apply your Wall of Life to build a huge wall that surrounds the entire coastline. Team Leader Ying, this is a big deal. And the amount of work is no less than the Qin Great Wall before the Ice Age. How can the ancient Qin dynasty compare with our flourishing Eastern power? This project difficulty is nothing to us. Ying Ziyue has such confidence that the East is now at a level above the first level of civilization, and it is no problem to build a huge project like the Great Wall. Since Team Leader Ying has such confidence, let me do it. When I came to the laboratory, I saw a dark green Rubik's Cube floating in the culture solution point. Zhao Wenlin brought Ying Ziyue here, and then pointed to the dark green Rubik's Cube, in cultivating the will, and said, after the last time, we have carried out further transformation and evolution of life intellectual property. The current length of life can be described as the real Wall of Life. Zhao Wenlin has added biological genes to the original Wall of Life point. This makes the current Wall of Life have evolved into an intelligent creature. As long as this dark green Rubik's Cube is placed on an ordinary city wall point, it only takes 1 day and 1 night, and this Wall of Life will cover the entire city wall, except for devouring other construction waste. To repair the wall point, we have also added plant genes, and the Wall of Life can photosynthesize external light to maintain the biological basis of the body point. The Wall of Life in front of you is like weeds. As long as it is placed on the wall, it can take root point. Whether it is an extremely cold environment or a hot environment, it can continue to survive. Point. Upon hearing this, Ying Ziyue couldn't help but question, according to you, this Wall of Life is like a living plant. Are you sure it will not cause harm to other human environments? If the Wall of Life, which is not afraid of severe cold or hot environment, has such a strong survival performance, if it is not controlled and controlled, what should they do if it causes a flood of thinking? Zhao Wenlin smiled and said, I have considered this issue a long time ago. So this Wall of Life is not so much a plant. It is a combination of plants and technology. The backbone of the Xian of Life is a connection between the intelligent AI system and the general control system of the headquarters. As long as the connection between the general control system and the intelligent AI system is cut off, the Wall of Life will be self-defeating. At the same time, the master control system can also use the intelligent AI system to control the Wall of Life. Zhao Wenlin took most of the situation into consideration. Ying Ziyue nodded and said, you can start to have a life-producing wall next, and try to cover the entire coastal area. Chapter 638. Hello, Team Leader Ying. The construction drawings for the Wall of Life you want have been completed. Along with the pop-up of a voice, a project file came immediately. Ying Ziyue opened this file, and saw that all the details about the Wall of Life project were undoubtedly revealed on this drawing. Just looking at this drawing, he can imagine what the Wall of Life will look like to be built. It deserves to be drawn by the Central Engineering Department. The efficiency is so fast, so that we can start statistics on materials. On the other hand, the project documents for the Wall of Life were sent to the Ministry of Resources, and the Minister of Resources was shocked when he saw the project documents for the Wall of Life. Good fellow, is this to learn from Qin Shi Huang to build the Great Wall? Even if the country has so many resources, it is not such a squandering. At this moment, the Minister of Resources saw that the name of the proposer below was Ying Ziyue, and his face suddenly changed 180 degrees. It turned out to be the plan of the team leader Ying, so there is nothing wrong with it. The leader of the battalion team proposed the project. It must be the best. It must be built to prevent some catastrophe. Immediately call the ministers of the Ministry of Resources for a meeting. The materials needed to build the wall of life this time are extremely large, and even the Minister of Resources himself cannot easily make the decision. The steel required for the above will be tens of millions of tons. The construction of this wall of life requires about 1/10 of the materials of the Ministry of Resources. The ministers of all departments were summoned. When they saw the plan of the wall of life, the expressions on their faces were exactly the same as those of the Minister of Resources. This is not a small project. It needs to consume a lot of national resources. Who do you think is the proposer of this plan? Group leader Ying. That's alright. The Minister of Resources looked at everyone and then said, I have already consulted the people above. The reason why team leader Ying wants to build the wall of life is to deal with the huge tsunami that will come a month later. Hearing this sentence, the ministers of other departments did not say anything. Ying Ziyue is the benchmark of human civilization. Every action he does is to promote the development of human civilization. So when the proposer of this plan was Ying Ziyue, even if other people had some doubts, they were still in their hearts for a time. Everyone in the Ministry of National Resources began to take action. They have never been as busy as they are today. The warehouse doors opened one after another, and a large number of transport vehicles pulled away a very large amount of resources from the warehouse. My goodness. After I joined the Ministry of National Resources, this is the first time I have seen such a spectacular view. These resources are in the warehouse. They are almost moldy, and it is time to come in handy now. Originally, these warehouses were full of dang building materials, but now they are suddenly empty. The money is good. I'm not used to it. At this time, 1/10 of the warehouses of the Ministry of National Resources were emptied. You must know that these warehouses are all the materials that the country has accumulated. Since the Ice Age. Just 1/10 is empty. I don't know when it will be filled next time. Transport vehicles and transport helicopters are like locusts crossing the border, starting from the Ministry of National Resources. The final destination of these resources is the major cities along the coast. Chapter 639. If it is said that the construction of a huge wall of life surrounding the entire coastline cannot be completed in 1 month. So what if you only build the wall of life that connects the two cities? In order to complete the construction of the wall of life in advance, Ying Ziyue proposed a plan that is to mobilize the cities in the entire coastal area to let them participate in the project of building the wall of life. A large amount of building materials were sent to coastal cities for a time. Just as the residents of those coastal cities were scratching their heads, the official website released information about the moon prediction. When everyone saw the news, their faces changed drastically. The people in those coastal cities are like this. If they really follow the news published on the official website, then their coastal areas will encounter the biggest tsunami in history. The biggest tsunami in history is not to say it is very likely that they will be buried in this tsunami, and the people in the coastal areas also know why these building materials are sent to their cities. Subsequently, Ying Ziyue started a live broadcast, and in less than an hour, the number of people in the live broadcast room directly exceeded tens of millions. Ying Ziyue, as the leading figure of the Great Eastern countries and the promoter of human civilization at the beginning of the Ice Age, he led the people of the East through many disasters, and he made the East stand tall in this Ice Age. He is the benchmark of human civilization and the savior of the Earth. His popularity is much higher than those on the internet. Everyone regards him as a human hero. Since Ying Ziyue registered an account, he has rarely logged in. Even so, his fans are still the number one existence in the entire network. Ying Ziyue never expected that she had so many fans. My god, Ying Ziyue actually started the live broadcast. Grandpa, you are paying attention to the anchor. I didn't expect to see the news that the only anchor I follow will start broadcasting in the rest of my life. The barrage in the live broadcast room is flooding like a tide. This may be a flow that all reporters and internet celebrities in the live broadcast room will not be able to reach for a lifetime. Ying Ziyue gave a dry cough. Never expected that there would be so many people following him on his live account. However, he did not start the broadcast this time to chat with the audience. Ying Ziyue saw that the number of people in the live room was almost the same and started recording and then solemnly said, "Hello everyone, my name is Ying Ziyue. I believe everyone has received the official release information. Yes, an unusually unprecedented tsunami is approaching us. According to our preliminary prediction, the highest wave of this tsunami may reach hundreds of meters high. This is a national disaster. Once that tsunami hits the land, it will surely cause a devastating blow to the cities in the coastal area, and there is one last month before these tsunamis land, and in this last month, we will build a wall of life project around the entire coastline. It's time for the people to unite. Jinping. The strength of our engineering department is unable to build the entire huge wall of life surrounding the coastline in 1 month. So I hope the people of the whole country can help us build this huge wall of life that surrounds the entire coastline. The strength of one person is weak, but we are the descendants of the Chinese and Chinese people who are united. We can definitely survive this disaster." Chapter 640. For a time, the live video of Ying Ziyue swept the world like a violent wind. Under the intentional promotion of the government, live video recording is even more crazy. When the people in the West saw this recording, they were shocked. What they were surprised was that the East was actually going to do such a seemingly fantastic project. The construction of a wall of life project that surrounds the entire coastline is as absurd as Qin Shi Huang said to build the Great Wall. These people in the East are simply a bunch of illogical guys. The wall of life project that surrounds the entire coastline, even if it is done, will take 1 or 2 years of effort. How can it be done in 1 month? I believe it won't take long for those people in the East to realize how powerless they are. However, just when those Western people were not optimistic about the Wall of Life project in the East, some Western people suddenly said, "But the East has completed all kinds of miraculous projects before." That's right, this is the undoubted East, and it has completed many miraculous projects that seem to be impossible for the people in the West. In the East at this time, after Ying Ziyue's encouragement, all coastal cities were twisted into a rope and began to build the Wall of Life. However, before construction, the construction trajectory of the Wall of Life must be planned so as not to cause dislocation and cause the Wall of Life to fail to connect. At this time, the Central Engineering Department sent a large number of draftsmen to major coastal cities to survey and plan the Wall of Life. Engineers have arrived in our city, and I don't know when we can start the construction of the Wall of Life. It's been a long time since I was so passionate. I didn't expect that one day I would be able to participate in the national project. Thanks to the fact that we were born in the East, our country is so strong that we can actually build the Wall of Life, such a huge project. Born in the East, Sansheng is fortunate. After the cartographer completed the measurement of the strength of life, under the command of the major coastal cities, the people started their work. First of all, a large number of blizzards drove out of the city and began to remove snow from the construction site. The snow chariot cleared some candidates on the front feet, and then a large number of people walked out of the city on the back feet, holding shovel in hand and some primitive tools to start excavating the foundation. Zero find flowers. These people have been eager to start operations, and then these coastal cities have successively received materials transported by the central government. Subsequently, these people began to gradually be equipped with anti-sweat devices and digging tools. In less than a day, I saw that all the foundations around the coastal cities had been dug, and at this rate, it only took 3 days to lay the foundations. This is the Eastern speed. Ying Ziyue also joined the engineering team in Xihai City. He was wearing an engineering protective suit, looking at the tablet in his hand. The satellites in the sky conduct real-time navigation, so there is no need to worry about misalignment at the end of the reception point. At this moment, the air corridor system issued an alarm. The air corridor system warns that a cold current will land on the coastal areas tomorrow. Ying Ziyue frowned. "If you don't come early, if you don't come late, you come at this time. Notify the disaster prevention center to suppress this cold wave for me anyway." Died. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 641. The Central Disaster Relief Center and Disaster Relief Center have also received news about the cold wave. If it is kept as usual, they may not care. After all, the scale of this cold wave is not very large, and it is nothing compared to the previous cold wave. However, it should never land on the east at this time. Once it successfully landed on the coastline, it will definitely cause harm to the people under construction. Not only August 17th, it will also delay a lot of time for the Wall of Life project. Now they need time, but there is no effort and cold wave to waste here. Thinking of this, the Central Disaster Relief Center used the air corridor for the first time to locate the center of this cold wave. Soon, the air corridor system was positioned to the center of the cold wave. The center of the cold wave has been positioned. This cold wave is 1 kilometer from the coastline. It currently takes a day to reach the coastline. I don't need to know how long he will land. I only want you to completely annihilate it on the sea before it has landed. Receive. The icebreaker departs from the port, but this icebreaker is completely different from other icebreakers. It is smaller and faster. This is the newly developed unmanned icebreaker. This icebreaker is much smaller than ordinary icebreakers, but its speed is faster, which makes it enough to break through most ordinary ice. I saw this unmanned icebreaker swiftly racing across the sea like an arrow from the string. This picture was broadcast live on the official website, and everyone knew that a cold wave was about to hit the coastal areas. Everyone, you know that now on the coastline of the coastal area. Most of the people are doing infrastructure work for the strong life. Everyone believed that in the face of the cold wave, the East would abandon the project and wait until the cold wave passed before continuing. But this time Dongfang did not choose to give in, but took the initiative to attack, which surprised everyone. But it was reasonable. After all, the strength of the Eastern powers is enough to drown you in the buds of this cold wave. So why bother to give in? The little cold wave dare to wreak havoc in front of the Eastern power, but this time to fight the cold wave. Why did the Eastern powers only send a small icebreaker? Yeah, this icebreaker doesn't look like a big deal. I saw the icebreaker quickly came to the cold wave, and the cold wave instantly swallowed the icebreaker in front of me, and saw a large amount of frost quickly rise on the surface of the icebreaker. Even the icebreaker, with different horsepower, could not move forward in the thick ice that was constantly freezing. In a blink of an eye, this little icebreaker was sunk deep on the ice surface in the cold wave. Seeing this scene, everyone couldn't help but sigh with disappointment. The icebreaker was too weak, and it was defeated so quickly. I saw that this icebreaker was covered with a lot of frost in a blink of an eye, and became an ice sculpture on the sea. What's the matter? Although the scale of this cold wave is small, it won't be enough to send a small icebreaker to death. What's the matter? Isn't it good at ordinary times? Why not drop the chain at critical moments? Before he finished his words, I saw the icebreaker that had just turned into an ice sculpture. In a blink of an eye, crimson light waves were emitted from all over his body, and his body expanded sharply. With a bang, the huge mushroom cloud swept the cold wave directly. Chapter 642. With a loud bang, the icebreaker suddenly exploded. The huge heat wave swept the entire cold wave like a whirlwind. The air current in the center of the cold wave was broken by this heat wave, which was annihilated above the sea before it landed. Seeing this picture, everyone was shocked. They never expected that the seemingly small unmanned icebreaker had such a terrifying energy. I took back what I said before. This little icebreaker turned out to be a mystery. I'm convinced the Great Eastern Power now doesn't need much action to fight Cold Wave 02. Just a few geothermal bombs. The energy of the explosion caused by these geothermal bombs is no less than the energy of a volcanic eruption. Is this the Great Eastern Country? A small cold wave dare to show off in front of the Great Eastern Country. This is the East. This disaster relief operation was very successful. Although it was only a small cold wave, the disaster relief operation made the people of the world feel the power of the Great Eastern Power. The cold wave gradually disappeared above the sea surface at a speed visible to the naked eye, and dissipated into the air long ago. When it reached the coastline, Ying Ziyue couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief as she watched the air corridor system. The data about the cold wave gradually disappeared until it disappeared. The foundation work of the Wall of Life is progressing steadily. A week later, the foundations of the Wall of Life are connected. The Wall of Life that surrounds the entire coastline takes only 1 week to lay the foundation. The people of the West were shocked. Is this the approximate terrorist power of infrastructure? It's not over yet. The next East will continue to build this Wall of Life, and a large amount of reinforced concrete will come from all directions. From the perspective of the drone in the sky, the wind and snow trucks are like ants, carrying supplies on the pure white ice sheet. The workers on the construction site have never seen such a spectacular scene in their entire lives. Steel is piled up on the periphery of the construction site like tall buildings, and bags of cement are arranged on the snowy field like a grey ribbon on the pure white snowy field. They had never seen so many building materials piled up here at the same time in their entire lives. But they also understood the Wall of Life project they had taken over. The difficulty of the project is no less than that of the Wanli city built by Qin Shi Huang. When they think of participating in such a great route project, they feel enthusiastic. Under the aerial view of the drone, the Wall of Life that stretches for thousands of miles is embedded in the eastern land like a necklace. A week later, the framework of the Wall of Life has been completed, and a large number of steel bars are interlaced and intricately woven into a steel net. At the same time, some places have more engineering staff, and they have even begun to pour cement. The horrible speed of construction fell in the eyes of the Western people, and those Western people who believed that it was absolutely impossible to complete the project in the East also gradually closed their mouths. According to the current progress of the project, within 1 month, Dongfang can definitely complete the construction of the Wall of Life. At this time, Ying Ziyue was not idle either. He mobilized a large number of survey drones from the Central Engineering Bureau. There must be no loss in the quality of the Wall of Life. Once the Wall of Life collapses, it is not just the people in the coastal cities that will suffer. Even the country will suffer from this. After all, this is 1/10 of the country's resources. Thinking of this, Ying Ziyue even dare not neglect. Chapter 643. This is Xihai City, and the construction of the Wall of Life project is completed. This is Xihai City, and the construction of the Wall of Life project is completed. Here in Xihai City, the Wall of Life project is expected to be completed in 10 hours. The construction of the Wall of Life in major coastal areas has been completed one after another, and the latest coastal cities will be completed 1 day later. Ying Ziyue collaborated with more than a dozen quality inspection engineers from the Engineering Bureau of the Central Department of Engineering to conduct quality inspections on the overall quality of the Wall of Life. Because the Wall of Life has a huge amount of engineering, but the construction period is pitifully short, there may be some engineering flaws in the process of speed construction. These engineering defects are not easy to find, but when the Wall of Life is put into use, these defects can easily cause huge losses. However, the facts have proved that the East is definitely not a country that is remembered by the world only by engineering speed. With such a huge Wall of Life, they have only discovered a small flaw. This defect can easily be repaired by the repair system that comes with the Wall of Life, and it is harmless at all point in the process of rapid construction. The quality of the project can be guaranteed. Dongfang once again won the exclamation of the people of the world. With 1 week left, the Wall of Life project finally ushered in completion. This Wanli city wall that surrounds the entire coastline, like a scarf in the East, protects the East from the severe cold. After the construction of the Wall of Life was completed, the cold current from the sea was blocked outside, and the temperature in the interior rose by several degrees. Dongfang really did it. They actually built the Great Wall of China in just 1 month. No, 22 days to be exact, not even a month. The construction of the Great Wall by the first emperor of the ancient East has been passed down through the ages. Today, Ying Ziyue has mobilized to build the Wall of Life. The East is truly a magical country with many heroes. My god, I really want to enter the East and see this magical country. I heard that the civilization of the East is rapidly developing due to the construction of major projects. The environment in the inland areas has been transformed into the environment before the Ice Age. People there can go out even without wearing cold-resistant clothing. At this moment, the live broadcast suddenly changed, and Ying Ziyue was standing on the city wall, holding a dark green Rubik's Cube in his hand. Dear people of the East, thank you for your support. Without you, this wall of life would never be completed in this short period of 1 month. I'm here today, letting go of this Rubik's Cube of life, so that everyone can understand that this wall is definitely not a wall of life on the surface, but a real wall of life. I saw Ying Ziyue throwing the Rubik's Cube on the wall at her feet, and suddenly the life Rubik's Cube was torn apart. The fragmented cube of life sank into the city wall like ice and snow, and then, people all over the world couldn't believe their eyes were locked. I saw a vegetation, Ying emerge from the wall, followed by wisps of grass. A large number of grasses spread around like a tide, and in the blink of an eye, the green mountains and plains are everywhere. My god, is this magic? This is a miracle. My god, what kind of technology is this? This is the real wall of life, the green of. The wall of life spread rapidly, covering the entire city wall in just 1 day. Chapter 644. Under the live observation of satellites in the air, everyone has seen that a touch of green is growing wantonly on this icy world in the East. Before long, the entire city wall was covered by lush grass. These grasses stood proudly in the cold without being affected by the wind and snow. Ying Ziyue felt the fragrance of the grass around him. Of course, the reason why these plants grew so fast was because Ying Ziyue had added some growth hormones to this cube of life. He asked Zhao Wenlin that he could use appropriate growth hormone to quickly build the wall of life. However, no matter how fast it grows, it will take at least 3 days to integrate with the city wall underneath. Don't look at these grasses that look like plants, but if you analyze them under a microscope, you can find that there are genuine metal elements inside the grass. They devour the surface building materials of the city wall to form the necessary element for their growth. They are not so much plants, as they are a precision instrument that combines biology and technology. Ying Ziyue sat down on these grasses. Although these weeds were part of the wall of life and contained a lot of metal element inside, but its touch is no different from ordinary plants. Ying Ziyue sat on the city wall and looked at the sea level not far away. On the surface of the sea, I saw a huge round moon standing in the air. Now you can see the trail of the moon even in the daytime, and the size of the moon is much larger than before. People can even see the bumpy terrain on the moon. According to the prediction of the Astronomical Bureau, after a week, the moon will occupy the entire sky, and a huge tidal phenomenon will be triggered at that time. Everyone also discovered the image of the moon in the sky, and believed in the predictions issued by the Astronomical Bureau. However, the people of the East did not feel panic because of this. The establishment of the Wall of Life was not only a milestone in human history, but also a huge rock in the hearts of the people of the East. The existence of the Wall of Life makes the people of the East feel safe. A week later, the moon in the sky is constantly magnified like the fear in the human heart. If the mid-autumn full moon makes people feel peaceful, then the huge full moon in the sky that occupies almost all the stars now makes people feel the existence of fear. The phenomenon of Xihai appeared, and the whole world fell into fear. Only the East and the people of the East were closely watching the news on the official website. They firmly believe that this time the country will lead them through the difficulties again. This is the National Astronomical Administration. Today's moon has already created forecast data. This is the sky moon phenomenon. This is the headquarters of the Marine Monitoring Bureau. We have monitored a large number of tsunamis generated by the moon across the country. We are currently collating the data and uploading it to the Disaster Relief Center. This is the Antarctic Research Center. We found that a large number of icebergs were affected by unknown ocean currents and are heading to the mainland. The specific data has been uploaded to the Disaster Relief Center. This is the Atlantis Marine Disaster Management Authority. A large number of unidentified ocean currents have been detected. A large number of storms are expected to occur. The specific data has been uploaded to the Disaster Relief Center. The Air Corridor Supervision Department here has detected that a large number of thunderclouds are condensing. Chapter 645. At this moment, Ying Ziyue looked at the screen in front of her and took a sip of coffee to refresh her mind, because she knew that the next battle to meet him would be a tough battle. This is Xihai City. Our city's tsunami monitoring system found a huge tsunami with a wave height of 300 meters approaching our city. This is Xihai City. Our city's earthquake detection system has discovered that a magnitude 5 earthquake will occur near our city. We request solid material support. This is Xihai City. Our city's storm detection system detects that a huge thunderstorm is approaching our city. This is the Yellow Sea City. I discovered through aerial satellite positioning that a huge iceberg continent is approaching our city, requesting the giant soldiers to provide remote support. Earthquakes, tsunamis, thunderstorms, iceberg continent. This time the sky moon phenomenon has triggered a series of disasters, which are less affected in inland areas, especially in coastal areas. Suffered various disasters such as tsunami, thunderstorm and iceberg continent respectively. This was a huge test for the East. Ying Ziyue stared at the screen with wide eyes. Turn on the artificial operating system of the Wall of Life and mobilize intelligent AI to take care of Xihai City. We must let them survive that tsunami disaster safely. Receive. Sending support troops to provide material support to Xihai City must ensure the safety of the people's property. Receive. Send a large number of thunder and lightning chariots to Xihai City to absorb and transform the thunder falling from the thunderstorm cloud. Don't let the thunder and lightning damage important projects in the city. Receive. How is Xihai's situation? Xihai soldiers' physical data is all normal. You can set off for disaster relief operations at any time. We sent Xihai soldiers to Xihai City. The environment on the sea is not stable this time. Let Xihai soldiers pay attention to energy usage. Receive. With the issuance of orders from Ying Ziyue, the entire Eastern power is turning like a precision instrument. At this moment, people all over the world have seen that the sleeping lion in the East has finally shown its unparalleled power in the depths of its claws. This time the sky moon phenomenon is far beyond everyone's imagination. They thought it was a huge tidal phenomenon caused by the moon being close to the earth! Zero fine flowers. But I never thought that the chain phenomenon caused by the moon's approach to the earth is not only the tidal phenomenon. All the disasters broke out today as if they were testing the East Point. However, the East is not afraid of challenges. This is the Antarctic Scientific Research Station. We have sent glacier soldiers to provide remote support, and we are expected to reach the coastline of the inland in an hour. Zero. Receive. This is the study of Xihai City. The research and development of the Galaxy Titan soldier is completed, and the Galaxy has applied to join the disaster relief operation. After Ying Ziyue received these two messages, her frowning brows also stretched slightly. After these two giant soldiers joined the battle, they can alleviate a lot of pressure. On the internet at this time, people all over the world seem to have exploded. Oh my god, doesn't it mean that there is only a tsunami disaster? Why are there so many other disasters? Is this the end of the world is coming? The East is going against the sky, and now it's finally getting retribution, right? This is God's retribution. We are finished. How can we survive so many disasters? Died. Chapter 646. Tick. When the first drop of rain fell on the walls of Xihai City, everyone's hearts suddenly lifted up. One after another heavy rain poured down, and in a blink of an eye there was a downpour of thick black cloud shrouded the sky above Xihai City, and all the black clouds were like a huge rock weighing on everyone's hearts. The sea in the distance is rough, and the height of the largest wave at this time has already exceeded 10 meters. August 20. Lin Zixun, director of the Xihai Maritime Disaster Management Bureau, stood on the observation tower of the city wall in Xihai City, holding a black umbrella in his hand and looking out at the sea in the distance. The originally calm coast has completely turned into a beast at this time, and it vents its violence wantonly. Those small fishing boats that can't get into the harbor are swaying like duckweed in the waves. At this time, Their ultimate fate is only one, and that is to be swallowed into the sea by the waves. With a muffled bang, a huge wave of more than 10 meters hit the wall of life directly, but this huge wave with a height of only a dozen meters seems a little insignificant when it hits the wall of life, that is hundreds of meters high. The wall of life emits a faint green light, and the waves have an impact, and the energy that will eventually become the wall of life is stored in the body to deal with the upcoming tsunami. One wave after another hit the wall of life. Lin Ziyue frowned slightly, opened the tablet in his hand, entered the air corridor system, and monitored the huge tsunami that was coming. With a bang, in the sky, a sky thunder fell from the sky and hit the sea. This sky thunder is like a drum of war, completely kicking off the prelude to disaster. The sea was roaring, the waves were rolling, and there was a white line on the sea horizon in the distance. This white line gradually became thicker and longer. It was not until I got close to people that I finally saw its true appearance. A huge wave of more than 100 meters high, like a wild beast, it rushed straight towards the wall of life. There was a loud bang, and the huge waves crashing on the wall of life made a huge sound like thunder on the ground. This loud sound shocked everyone's heart. Lin Ziyue stared at the wall of life. He knew that such a terrifying huge wave could not be resisted by the wall of Xihai City alone, so they can only pin their hopes on the wall of life in front of them. This is their last hope. Director Lin, it's too dangerous here. Let's go back to the central government for remote monitoring. With such a terrifying huge wave, no matter who saw it, his legs would become weak. The accompanying personnel began to persuade Lin Ziyue to return to the interior of the city for remote monitoring. Lin Ziyue stood still, straightening his spine and looking at the wall of life. This is the last hope of our coastal people. I want to see it with my own eyes. If even the wall of life built by 1/10 of the power of the great eastern country can't resist this huge wave, so what's the point of hiding in the city? Upon hearing these words, the entourage was silent. The heavy rain was pouring, and the sea in the distance had already begun to fall into madness at this time. At this moment, another white line appeared in the distance, and the huge wave that appeared this time was far stronger than the last time. The momentum was more ferocious, and the figure was bigger. It carried the world destroying oppressive force, and pressed against the wall of life fiercely. Chapter 647. This disaster is not only a disaster in Xihai City, but also a disaster suffered by major coastal cities and some special inland cities. There are not only the tsunami that destroys the world, but also the thunder and earth-shaking earthquakes condensed over the city. All disasters broke out at the same time on the day of the Xihai phenomenon, and the whole world was really like the end of the day. The government has opened multiple live broadcast rooms to broadcast live broadcasts of disasters in various cities at this time. In Xihai City, a huge tsunami is raging, and Lin Ziyue, director of the Xihai City Marine Disaster Financial Management Bureau 02, is standing on the watchtower of the city wall. Through the live broadcast, the audience saw the huge tsunami that ruined the world, and they were a little frightened for a while. It is hard to imagine how much pressure Ying Ziyue has withstood on the scene. At the Central Disaster Relief Center at this time, Ying Ziyue could feel through the live broadcast that Xihai City was fighting against the huge pressure at this time. All their hopes are pinned on the wall of life. Once the wall of life collapses, in the face of such a huge tsunami, they have no chance to resist. Immediately begin to detect the loss of the wall of life in the surrounding areas of Xihai City. Received. It has begun to detect the loss of the wall of life in the surrounding areas of Xihai City. After the inspection, the loss of the wall of life in the surrounding areas of Xihai City has reached 40%. The wall of life needs to be supplemented with energy as soon as possible. Send this message to the Xihai City Disaster Relief Center. This is the East China Sea Disaster Relief Center. The information has been received, and we will immediately start repairing the wall of life. Lin Ziyue above the city wall received this message, and his motionless body finally moved. Immediately send an engineering team to supplement the loss of the wall of life. Receive. In this violent storm, a group of retrogrades in East Sea City rushed out of the city wall and galloped in the direction of the wall of life. The building material transporter is speeding on the muddy ice field. Under this stormy weather, the visibility is almost zero. Moreover, the risk of invisibility does not only come from this rainstorm, These rainstorms fall on the ice sheet and will turn into ice particles in a blink of an eye. As long as these building materials transport vehicles dare to stop under this ice sheet for a minute, in a blink of an eye, they will be covered by these torrential rains, and combined with the snow and ice on the ground, they will turn into an ice sculpture, so they can't stop. Once someone stops, it's a disaster. The rain fell on their tires, and a layer of frost was covered in the blink of an eye, but the tires kept turning, shattering the frost one by one. This is the Ice Age, and frost and cold are their biggest enemies. Fortunately, the building materials transportation vehicle finally reached its destination, and the transportation vehicle could not be stopped. The engineers threw down the building materials on the vehicle point. Then, while the speed of the building material transporter was reduced, he jumped directly, and then lifted the building materials on the ground, and hurried to the supplementary area of the Wall of Life. Don't stop. Do you want to turn into ice sculptures? Don't stop me, move me. The engineers called for the companions, who stood motionless. After everyone picked up the building materials, they quickly ran towards the supplementary area. Frost condensed on them with the rain, and then shattered due to their violent actions, turning into broken ice, and falling to the ground. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 648. The torrential rain fell on them like pebbles. The engineers were carrying building materials and could hardly see the surrounding situation. They could only seek the way based on the faint green light emitted by the Wall of Life. With a puff, someone fell down. Everyone was slightly startled, and the pace under their feet stopped involuntarily. But at this moment, a voice sounded like thunder on the ground. What are you doing to stop? Do you want to die? Get me moving. Don't stop. You carry it on your shoulders, but the fate of the entire Xihai City. Everyone was suddenly awakened by this violent shout, crackling, and accompanied by the sound of crushing ice. The engineering team began to move again. A worker is wearing a cold-resistant suit. At this time, his calf has been covered with a thick layer of ice. These ice cubes are still spreading upward. In less than 5 minutes, he will turn into a complete ice sculpture. Even if he wears cold-resistant clothes, he can withstand the erosion of this ice block. But when he turns into an ice sculpture, these ice blocks will block the vent, and he will soon suffocate and die. At this moment, amid the heavy rain, a figure appeared in the worker's field of vision. Damn it, your kid is really slow, Captain. Leave me alone. Keep up with the big army, or you will soon be lost in this storm. The man in front of him was Shigang, the captain of the engineering team. Shigang snorted and said, "When Laozi came out today, I knew that you little boys won't give me peace of mind." With a bang, I saw Shigang throw a geothermal chip on the ground. The hot geothermal chip was thrown into the ice and snow, emitting a lot of heat instantly. Seeing that the surrounding area instantly turned into a sea of steam, Shigang cursed. "What are you doing in a daze? Do some violent movements now to remove the back of your body, and then follow the big army, Laozi's engineering team. You can't miss one person." The worker tried his best to move his legs, only to hear a slap. The thick ice smashed, and Shigang picked up the worker. "Thank you, I will say it, after I get to the city. Now move me, immediately. Keep up with the big army." "Yes, Captain." At this time, the Xihai City Wall of Life Monitoring Center saw that the loss of the Wall of Life at this time had been reduced by 50%. If they continue to decrease according to this progress, it is very likely that they will not be able to withstand the next wave of huge waves. With such a big storm and almost zero visibility, can they really reach the supplementary area safely? This time there should be no problem with the engineering team led by Shigan. After all, the guy Shigan is the best engineering team leader on our side. Now it's useless for us to speculate. We can only pray for them to reach the supplementary area safe and sound. At this moment, the loss of the Wall of Life reached 49/100ths, and everyone's heart involuntarily raised it. Suddenly, the loss of the Wall of Life has recovered to 50%. Not only that, the loss of the wall of life has begun to decrease, which shows that the wall of life has been supplemented with building materials and is now opening its self-repair function. They succeeded. Suddenly, the entire Xihai City Wall of Life Monitoring Center uttered appalling cheers. They succeeded. Chapter 649. Here Shigang, we have successfully completed the supplement of building materials for life strength, and now we request to return to Xihai City. Request approval. Request approval. This is the headquarters. Thanks for your hard work. Shigang smiled and said to the many workers behind him, little ones, go back. The strength of life has been supplemented, and it is full of vitality again. The faint green light gleamed across the coastline. Lin Ziyue watched the exchange of information on the screen. He understands these short words, but behind them are countless risks and hardships. Hundreds of meters of huge waves are still rushing towards the wall of life, and the sound of the two collisions resounds out of thin air like thunder. Lin Ziyue frowned, and the height of these waves was getting higher and higher, and now the height of Jilang has reached about 300 meters. This is not the final huge wave, and a greater disaster is yet to come. At this moment, the heavy rain stopped, but this does not mean that the disaster is over. The sea is still turbulent, and the tranquility before the storm is unobstructed. A white line appeared on the coastline, and everyone's hearts were lifted. As the white line stayed in the field of vision longer and longer, the fear in everyone's hearts also grew, until after a long time, they still didn't see the figure of the huge wave. And finally, when they saw the true face of the white line point across the screen, everyone felt that their legs were weakened. It was a huge wave of 500 meters. This huge wave was like the fangs of the sea, deeply biting into the wall of life. With a slap, the monstrous wave slammed into the wall of life, a heartbreaking sound. Everyone closed their eyes involuntarily. I'm afraid that when they open their eyes, they will see the broken wall of life in the raging sea water. Lin Ziyue did not close his eyes. On the contrary, he opened his eyes wide. He firmly believed that the strength of life could definitely withstand the huge waves, because this is an Eastern project, and this is all the efforts of the Easterners. As the sea receded, I saw the wall of life standing there like tenacious weeds. The wall of life emitted a lot of gloomy light. This monstrous wave energy turned into human energy reserves. The wall of life resisted the attack of this huge wave, but it was far from over, and the anger of nature all turned into a huge wave. A series of terrifying huge waves continuously shot against the wall of life. The sound of the waves hitting is heart-shattering, and everyone can hear the anger of the sea. It was bound to smash this obstructive thing in front of it, but it failed, and the wall of life lay between the waves and the city like a mountain. No matter how terrifying the huge waves are, there is nothing to do with it. A sky thunder descends from the sky, and the sky thunder is like the incompetent rage of nature. With the coming of the sky thunder, all the waves calmed down here. They seemed to have surrendered. They had no way but the wall of life in front of them. The dark clouds in the sky dispersed, revealing the first ray of sunshine. The huge waves slowly dissipated, and even the rough sea gradually calmed down. Only the wall of life is left, emitting a faint light, as if it is preaching the victory of mankind. Lin Ziyue exhaled, and the huge boulder in his heart could finally be completely put down. He sat on the ground and looked at the sea in the distance. They won. Chapter 650. Xihai City is welcoming the tsunami. Not everyone knows that on the other side, Xihai City is also experiencing a catastrophe. At this time in the Yellow Sea City, the sky was a little gloomy, the sea was rough, and a large number of huge waves were constantly beating against the wall of life in front of them. There was no rainstorm in Xihai City, so their engineering department easily completed the supplement of building materials for the wall of life. However, all the residents of Xihai City did not feel fortunate because of this. On the contrary, at this time they are experiencing an even more serious disaster. The Xihai City Disaster Relief Center has located through the air satellite system that a huge iceberg continent of 600,000 square meters is approaching them. The volume of this iceberg continent is much larger than that of the iceberg continent it greeted last time. Not only that, because of the tidal phenomenon caused by the sky-moon phenomenon, the sea is turbulent. These tidal phenomena set off waves and accelerated the advancement of the iceberg continent. At this time, it has exceeded 200 kilometers per hour. This speed is simply faster than that of a train. If this iceberg continent hits the wall of life is 100% impossible to resist. Whether it is speed or volume, the huge energy produced by the two is something that no city can resist so far. Never let this iceberg continent crash into the wall of life. Do everything possible to slow down its speed. Receive. If this iceberg continent continues to accelerate, when it reaches the coastline, its speed will reach an astonishing 400 kilometers per hour. At that time, even if it is the rescue of the giant soldier, its speed will be enough to smash the giant soldier into a discus. After receiving the order, all the flying units in Xihai City took off and took their claws to the area where the iceberg continent is located. For a time, all the citizens of Xihai City saw densely packed planes passing over their heads. This is Air Force One. Any instructions to reach the designated destination? This is the Xihai City Disaster Relief Center. The specific location information has been sent to the iceberg continent. Please wait for other members to receive it and take action. Receive. For a time, a large number of planes followed far behind this iceberg continent. All air units in Xihai City are ready. Please order from the headquarters. 0 Find flowers received by the headquarters. All air units immediately release red claws and use their own power to prevent further movement of the iceberg continent. Receive. For a time, a large number of iron lock claws fell from the plane and took root in the iceberg continent. The iceberg continent keeps advancing, and these planes are like kites in the hands of the iceberg continent, dragging them far in the sky. At a time, all flying units turn on the highest power mode at the same time, and a large number of steady flames are ejected, giving them the greatest power. The Yellow Sea is the anti-disaster center closely monitoring the speed of this iceberg continent. I saw that the speed of this iceberg continent began to slowly decrease. Although the rate of decline is very slow, it still shows that their tactics are effective. You can keep it up. Now make a prediction immediately. If all the flying units are guaranteed to return home safely, and you saw their power, at least how much speed can be reduced on the iceberg continent? Report. It is expected to be reduced to 100 kilometers per hour. Not enough. Not enough. Died. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.